Ladies and gentlemen, ATDF everything in that shelf presentation. You're now rocking with TDF everything. Spoiled rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hey,
It's me, Daniel,
and this is Ben
on Spoiled Rotten.
on that shelf.
Boom. It's Loki, episode 3, Lamentis, I think.
Lamentis.
I realize I've written down the wrong name of the thing, but I think it's Lamentis.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Excellent. Well, it's a very interesting start. I think this is where we see what it looks like when the variant, who we figure out his name's Sylvie, she is controlling the mind of someone strong, I believe. This is what it is. And we'll get into her explanation later, but basically she creates a fantasy for them, basically.
Yeah.
And I thought it was very interesting because obviously she's like she's right there in there with the woman, completely changed her demeanor. And they were doing like something that seemed innocuous, just the whole brain freeze, because it freezes you, and then then she goes in for the kill, and I'm like, wow, all right. I really liked the way they started off that way.
Yeah, just straight pounce into it for sure. That was great.
Like it felt a bit disorienting, but then as I guess C20 figured out what was happening, we figure out what's happening, and we're like, my brain is being mined for information.
Yeah, I thought the interesting thing was maybe perhaps some of the increasing levels of similarities that we're seeing between like visual projection imagery and witchcraft and like the magic that Sylvie is using with what Wanda kind of did with like the imagery, but the colors are different. But also like how it's playing out to be like she's projecting hallucinations or visions within people's minds or something. Like it's kind of crazy, but like how it's happening within someone's mind, and the difference between Scarlet Witch is like, this is reality, like how much powerful Scarlet Witch is compared to this. Like it's nice to have that check, but to think that how similar they are at the same time.
Definitely. So basically that's what we were talking about last episode. Is obviously when she said I told her where the timekeepers are, it's what I assumed. She told her where she thinks the timekeepers are. So who knows what actually is happening, but she just says, just look for the gold elevators. And Sylvie makes it to the TVA. She's in there. I liked that she tried to use her powers, and obviously they don't work in the TVA. But
I like that scene a lot because it showed off like how capable she was, like fighting and like just getting out of that situation even without her magic. It was great.
She's like, oh, okay, then I'll just beat you up. Like, like it wasn't like damn it, no, what do I do? She's like, oh, okay, I'll just fight them. Great. But then like Loki kind of inserts himself, and I was wrong. I definitely thought she wanted him to follow her.
Right.
I
thought she wanted him to follow her too.
Realistically, we don't know yet.
Right.
I don't think any of this episode proves anything for Sylvie one way or the other. I think she's saying a lot of things, but if we're just taking it at surface, then no, it doesn't seem like she wanted him to follow her. It seemed like she was like, oh, you're just annoying, get out of here. And she was I really like the moment where she's gonna kill Loki, and Renslayer's like, yeah, go for it, like less work for me. I liked that in that little sequence no one's really like bothered. Like Renslayer and Sylvie aren't like, oh, what do I do? They're like, this is, go ahead. Like Sylvie's like, I'll just fight you, and Renslayer's like, good, kill him. Like I wanted to kill him before.
I think one of the interesting things about this episode is like, you said it right, it starts off in a creepy kind of eerie fashion, like something's weird, something's up, right? At this point we should always have that kind of feeling going into every episode of this, being that they're the gods of mischief. Like, okay, what do we believe, what do we not? But I think one of the very, very interesting things is like the starting off with the hallucination, and then what Renslayer says, like go ahead, I don't care. Like it just gives you off this really, really creepy vibe, and it'll like all come together when we get to the bombshell reveal later on. But like these are things that caught me off guard right off the beginning. I was like, this feels very weird, within the context of the show.
Well, then let's keep moving. Get to
that.
Yeah. Basically, Loki uses a time pad. I don't know where he got it from, but he had it, and he drops them on Lamentis 1. Obviously, he wanted to drop them into a apocalypse. I think they keep calling them apocalypses. I just keep calling them disasters. And it's 2077. Yep. And it's on a moon that will be destroyed by a planet that crashes into it.
Yeah.
And even Sylvie's like, well, that's fucked because even I wouldn't have come here. Like, I don't know how to get out of this one.
Didn't she say, like, out of all the apocalypses, you chose the worst one to possibly be in? It's like hilarious.
And basically I think she does get the temp pad and is like, well, it needs to be charged. So we're even more fucked than I thought. And they go about. So basically at that point, after she has the temp pad, she tries to enchant Loki, and he's like, well, that's not going to work because my mind's too strong. She doesn't really buy it, but she's like, okay, fine, I'll move on. And I'm pretty sure when we're finished talking about the events of the episode, we'll come back to that. But she just moves on from there. But there is an attempt. They also try to kill each other, and I think Loki makes the point of like, what's the point of us trying to kill each other when we can just work to get this charged and get out of here?
Yeah.
So she's fine with that.
It's like that temporary enemy or like, we both have a common goal, let's just do this and then go our separate ways kind of deal at the end.
So then they're walking and she's just like, oh, shut up, I don't want to like hear you. And she says basically her plan was years in the making.
Yes.
And basically once it's charged, she will just go back to the TVA and finish what she started. This is like, her mind is made up, basically. Like
her mind's totally made up. What I find is interesting is the lap of time is just like, you would think like all those charges going off at once, the TVA, like the distraction, she would be more rushed to find the power source to get back to the TVA. It was just like, it felt weird that she wasn't, right? Or do you think that it was relative, given that she could have just used the data pad to travel back to that moment?
Yeah, I don't think there's any.
Fair enough.
We're talking about time travel, so no, I don't think.
Yeah, that's. Time travel always confuses me in this regard, especially the way they do it in the MCU, where it's like, oh, if you see a past version of yourself, it doesn't affect your future. I'm like, okay, it makes sense logically, but still it messes with me. So it's really tricky. I get lost a lot.
I didn't think there was any rush because, as you said, she can go to where she needs to go. So the interesting thing is she never says what her plan is. Loki guesses that it's like, he's like, what, so you just want to tear it all down and then walk away? And I appreciated that she didn't say yes or no. She just let him say that. And then he said, well, I would have never done that. This is all leaning towards what we were talking about. Like, it doesn't seem, I mean, I don't think we know what variants are realistically for the MCU, but it seems like Loki has a sense that they're just copies of him. Like so it seems like he's constantly introduced to the idea of like, no, they aren't just copies of you. Like they're their own thing, because he just keeps questioning her moves. Like, well, that's not how I would do it. And she's like, yeah, I'm not you. Like I'm me. I'm Sylvie. So I thought that was. She says, yeah, I'm using Sylvie as an alias, and she says like, what makes a Loki? And I think I wrote it down actually. Yeah, he says independence, authority, and style. That's what makes a Loki. And then she's like, and then you decided to work with the TVA and lose all of those things, which I thought was very interesting because he's like, well, no, that's not what's happening. But she's like, doesn't seem very Loki-like to be working with the TVA.
I mean, she's right, but then he's still like, how does he try to justify? Is like, oh, I've got plans or something like that, and doesn't she immediately call him out on his plans, or was that the previous episode? Oh no, that was Owen Wilson being like, oh yeah, you're gonna do this, and this.
Well, he does what Owen Wilson did to her.
Yeah.
She's just like, yeah. Or she doesn't say yes or no. She just doesn't say anything because he immediately goes, I would never do that. And she's like, yeah, I'm not you. It doesn't matter what you would do.
I think it is funny that he's obsessed with like how he like. I feel like he wants to believe that he's the original Loki, even when he understands that there's multiple different ones. It's very interesting. You don't think it is? Okay.
I think in order to understand what Sylvie's doing, he needs to feel like there's a baseline of this is how I would operate, so this is how she would operate. I don't think it matters realistically who's the original. It's more just like, hey, you keep doing things and I'm not going to be able to manipulate the situation if I actually can't predict what you're going to
do. Yeah, okay, I can see that. Well, yeah, he is desperately trying to get control throughout the whole throughout the whole series.
Yeah, I mean, he's aware that she's better than him. Like he got caught, she didn't. There's that fact alone. So I think if he's going to be around her, he can't feel like she has the upper hand. So that's why I think he's so. Last episode, I feel like it was more like me being like, oh, maybe they're trying to imply that she's not a Loki variant. But I think now it's to me more clear that it's more just like, well, I don't know how to operate if I can't like pin down what the like basics are for this.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. You're trying to get in someone's head. And this is it's a confusing thing because he's trying to get inside what he's told is his own head. And that's the interesting thing is like what he's told. Because at this point, I'm like, do I really trust everything the TVA says? Or like, what do I trust from what the TVA says? Which is because we got like, all I remember is like the Miss Minutes video is where we're finding out this like, oh, this is the variants. And then like Mobius telling us this is the variants. There's this version of Loki, this version of Loki, this version. I'm like, okay, how much of that is real though at this point?
Oh, I think those are real things. I think
yeah.
So
you think the Lokis are real?
A show works if you have to question all of that.
Fair.
I don't think that's productive. I think you need to at least be aware of the concept of variants and that they can be different visually as well as that. Like the whole point of it, illustrating that was like, and they have different power sets as well. Like it's not just a cosmetic difference. I think there might be more to it than that, but I don't think it works if you're just supposed to be like, well, I don't know if that's true. I don't know. Like, then what are we doing here, right? It's only 6 episodes. You don't really have time to be like, and that was all. I mean, they could do that.
I think that we're
Sorry. I think they could do that. I don't think that would be a good use of anyone's time.
That's true.
I guess for me, I would need to believe that some of that needs to be true, and it's more lying by omission and less just flat out lying.
Yeah, because it's just like, and I can't wait to get to the bombshell moment of this episode. But yeah, we'll get there. Hold on, I'll just get there. Well, yeah.
So basically, I feel like she does this earlier, but this is like another time where I clocked that she lets Loki run out a situation until he goes, wait a minute, you're just trying to trick me. And then she's like, yeah, so stop asking, like, stop doing this to me. Because basically they try to take power from a sign. And then she's like, yeah, pass it to me. He's like, so you can take it and leave. And then she's like, of course it's not going to work on a stupid, like, light sign. Like, we need a real power source. Like, we need a lot of power for this. And she does that multiple times throughout the episode. I don't remember if this is the first time, but I thought it was very interesting that she's like, yeah, spin your wheel. Again, kind of just showing that she's way more in control, or at least less flustered than him.
Yeah.
That she's just like, okay, all right, go ahead, get to the, like, I'm ahead of you, like, catch up to where I am.
Yeah. And this is the part where I'm like, yeah, she is being more Loki than Loki. This is very mischievous in the idea of like, I'm just going to let you play yourself. That's exactly what she does. You're like, you're playing yourself. You're getting in your own mind. I'm just going to let you do it. And that's how I just have to stand by and watch. It's so much fun to watch. I love it.
I really liked that. And then one thing I thought was interesting is they try to talk to someone, and I saw this as it doesn't work out because they aren't working together. They're both trying to prove to each other that they have a better. So she just tries to run in on it and be like, oh, I want this. And then Loki tries. I mean, we know Loki's approach. He changes his appearance.
Yeah.
He didn't read the situation properly, because then he still gets shot the same way Sylvie does, because she's like, okay, my husband never said anything that nice to me ever, so obviously you're lying. And then she's basically like, just what the hell do you want? Like, and
I forgot all about that.
Yeah, I like that it was like they both were like, watch this, and it didn't work because they weren't they weren't aligned. They weren't connected that way.
Yeah, they're just trying to one up each other and
exactly.
flex and all that kind of stuff. And it was so much fun to watch get shot.
But then they're like, okay, now you have to go do you have to get on a train, basically. That's where that's going to take you to the Ark. That's how they I think they still needed a power source, but they were going to use the train as a power source or something like that. And they worked this time. They incorporate both of their styles. So it's Loki gets to dress up and try to talk his way, and then Sylvie seals the deal by using her enchanting. She gets close enough to grab, and I might have skipped over her talking about how she does the enchantment, but it's whatever. But yeah, basically she does it. She enchants the person. They get on the train, and I think that was me being like, yeah, okay, so they finally worked together instead of against each other,
right?
And they got on the train.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about what you said about really, really briefly about how she explains how the magic works, I think is really, really cool, because I think that's like Loki's way of secretly trying to get her to be so proud and showing off that he learns how she does it and he adds a new set of powers to his repertoire or something like that, you know?
I don't remember that.
No, I'm not saying that that's what happened. I'm just saying I'm hoping that that's what he was doing, was trying to figure out how she was doing that, because he was genuinely like, how are you doing that kind of deal?
Oh, we haven't got to that scene yet.
Right. Oh, really? No, I thought we were. Okay.
No, I think she tried to describe it later, and it's when they're sitting on the train.
Oh, right. Yeah, I'm getting it crossed up. Okay. Yeah, because she does start talking about it briefly and then gets interrupted. Okay, fair.
So yeah, basically they get on the train. I don't know if this is important, but it is clear that Lamentis is like, well, it's going to be the rich people that get away with, like,
yes,
like you even hear there's dialogue off screen of I don't even think they have to be poor. They're just not the elite, saying they won't even sell me tickets. I've been asking and they won't sell me the tickets. So they're clearly like trying to pick the best of the best, in quotation marks, to get out of there.
It is a very, very corrupt way. That's what I was doing.
Okay,
it's very clear. I like the little throwbacks to like Snowpiercer and all that kind of stuff, like class systems within trains.
Snowpiercer, there's Star Wars, there's G.I. Joe. It's all kind of,
there's a cluster of everything. I was just like, oh, nice little nods.
So one thing again that I feel like we'll come back to, I don't even remember the first thing I said we'd come back to, but this one maybe I'll remember, is the framing of when they sit down. She says, I don't want to sit there. She gives a bullshit reason of, I don't have my back to the door, because he's like, there's doors both ways. But it then sets up the exact same framing as when she was talking to C20 when they sit down. And we know what was happening with C20. There was an illusion going on. Basically where I'm going with this is maybe this was all an illusion, but we'll get to the episode. But yes, I figured that was interesting, because this is also a second time where she lets Loki go through a scenario before. She's like, yeah, stop asking, like, you're an idiot, I'm never gonna let this happen. But yeah, in addition to that, like, basically the visuals of it, like, and it's the same idea. I know that we figure this is how she dresses anyway, but she's dressed in a way that would be pleasing to Loki, because she looks the way a female Loki would look, the same way she was dressed, the same way whoever C20 was before she became C20 would like. So she's mirroring the person she's trying to enchant. I think there's something to that.
Yes,
that they're sitting in this area, and then basically this is where you get a moment of them talking about Freya. I don't know if it's Frigga or Freya, but what's her name? I don't remember her name now. His mom. Is it Renee Russo?
Renee Russo. Yeah. It's Renee. I'm just going to call her Renee Russo because I can't remember it's Frigga or Freya.
Yeah, but they talk about Renee Russo and basically how Loki learned his magic, but saying things like she was the type of person you wanted to believe in you. Just the amount of reverence and love he has for his mother, I thought was very interesting.
Yeah,
and then Sylvie's like, well, I don't remember my mom, but she did know she was adopted. So,
Yeah.
But he's like, oh, did I spoil that for you? She's like, no, they told me. And he's like, oh. And it's interesting that he's like, they didn't, because she says they didn't tell you. He's like, no. I guess that's true. He was an adult before they were like, oh, you're adopted. And I think he found it out, not them.
He found it out because when the frost giant touched him, he didn't freeze, and he was like, what up? And because he watched someone like another person freeze.
Right. Yeah. He had questions, and then Odin was like, yeah, I stole you from the frost giants.
Yeah. And it's like, so what? Yeah. You're gonna
get over it.
I saved you.
Yeah. But yeah, she taught herself to do enchantments basically. And I think that's where she where she really gets into like how to do it, like getting in like that. No, I think I know why we're jumping the gun. She says it right before the bombshell. That's when she explains how she does her enchantments, because that's what leads to the bombshell. Anyway, so yeah, we can move on now. Basically, she says that she does have a postman that she's been able to like keep in touch with through long distance over all the apocalypse jumping, which leads to Loki being like, he doesn't even have that. Like he's like, he does admit, or not admit, he just confirms, I've had princes and princesses. I'm assuming the same for you. But he's never had anything meaningful. And I think they both agree on that, even though she tried to be like, I got a postman. But I think they were both like, we both don't have anything meaningful in that department.
Yeah. She's sad, but hey, hooray for Pride and him coming out. It was great.
Let's hope it's more meaningful than that one moment. Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree. But it was just one of those things where
I'm not willing to pat them on the back just yet. I would like them to actually, and I'm not saying there needs to be a whole movie about it. I'm just saying it's all well and nice to have a line of dialogue that some people in the audience may not connect with, and I mean younger people. I think it needs to be a bit more demonstrative than that, and it doesn't have to define him. It's more just like, let's have it be more than lip service.
Yeah, of course, 100%. But it's just one of those things where, will we actually ever see Loki express love other than towards his mother in this regard? Because his love towards his mother, because his love for his family is it's quite complex, but it's there. And it's the only thing that you're like, no, he loves his family. But we know the saga that unfolds.
Then there's a weird time jump, and this kind of debunks or this derails my thinking that Sylvie was in more control than she was letting on, because then she wakes up. We don't know. That was the thing. She let him run the thing on, like, oh, you sleep. No, you go to sleep or whatever. But basically, she does wake up. So I don't know what happened. And Loki is just gone. He's drunk. He's not even wearing his uniform anymore. He's back in his TVA outfit. He's just singing, having a good time. He even does and who knows who originated it, but he does the Thor, give me another, and dashing a glass to the ground, which gets them kicked off the train ultimately. Like, yes, they have a cool fight, but it's because a rich person's like, this person obviously doesn't belong here, and so then they have to fight. But I thought that was interesting that they just do a time jump. So I'm assuming they'll explain that, even if it's just one line of dialogue later. But it was just like, all right, like, she was so dedicated to not sleeping, but then she did fall asleep. Yeah,
that's when this whole episode got a little sus to me. I was like, that doesn't make sense. And because the thing too was like, it was a time jump, but also she was all of a sudden on the other side of the banquette. She wakes up on the other side. I think she doesn't she? No.
I think that's camera placement. She woke up where she fell, like where we left her.
Okay, it looked like it looked totally like she woke up on the wrong side. I was like, wait, what is that supposed to mean? Is that supposed to be like Loki's projecting, trying to get in her mind?
I feel like she was always on the right of the screen, of my screen, when I feel like that's where she woke up spatially, even if the camera was flipped to the other side.
Yeah, I feel like I have to, and it really depends on whether or not she was wearing the horn thing, a headband thing, I guess, where one of the horns is broken, because that'll indicate left or right to me. But like that was something that I'm like, wait, I was confused when I watched. I was like, did she just move to the other side?
You could be right.
Yeah.
My feeling was it was just more weird that she's different, but you could be right that she was just on a different side.
But it is sus that she just like let her guard down in front of Loki, and like she fell asleep. It's like all those things were like, wait, why would that happen?
Yeah. But basically, when Loki gets thrown off the train, it breaks the temp pad.
Yep.
So she has a scream. Good for her for getting out her rage.
Yep. And this is where it's similar to the Scarlet Witch kind of like emotional scream and burst. It had that same like visual effect of
green, like she had the green
magic
coming out of her for a bit.
Yep. I like how Loki was like, does that make you feel better? He's like just picking at her in that situation. That was funny.
Could be, but I saw it mirroring when he had his outburst during the Dark World, when you see that what it really looked like when he found out that his mom died.
Yeah. When he turned over the whole room and stuff like that. Yeah.
I don't know if he was digging at her. It seemed to be like he was looking for another in on already similar that way.
Fair. Because I like, here's the confusing thing to me about this Loki is that we have to remember, or I remember, and keep thinking about.
Well, I guess he never had that moment.
Exactly.
I take it back. He never had that.
Yeah. I keep thinking about like how this Loki would be different knowing his future, but not having gone through it. Is it going to fundamentally make him different, or which I hope it does? Like, what would it actually do? Right. But that to me is like always, how is this going to play out? Because he's still supposedly evil, even though he never truly is evil.
Well, we definitely took him from the most evil he's ever been. Yeah, so this is where Sylvie's like, you're not a serious man.
Yes.
Like, well, yeah, you're right. I'm a god. And she, no, but you're like an idiot. And he's like, I'm hedonistic. She's like, well, I'm more hedonistic than you. I would never be if it meant that I was gonna, compromise the mission.
At the cost of mission. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I thought that was very interesting.
I know he pushes back, but it was just like, she's just like, I would never do that. Yep. And one thing I find weird is, that isn't the same energy he had during Avengers. He wouldn't have like been so freewheeling. He had a mission to accomplish, and he was going to see it through. Yeah. So I don't know. Like, I just feel like that time jump, something happened there. We'll have to see.
Yeah. I agree. That's where like everything about that time jump was really, really weird, because all of a sudden I'm like, wait, this is like Thor, God, what's the Ragnarok Loki, where he's like just completely hedonistic and dancing, laughing, having partying.
Because he won.
Time. Yeah, because he won. But I'm just like, but you haven't gotten off the planet yet. You're facing impending apocalyptic doom, and you're just like, you're on a mission right now. She's absolutely right to say that to him, because like he's never really done that up until this point, really.
Yeah,
he's never done this.
So they decide to hijack the Ark. She's like, it never makes it off, and he's like, yeah, but we've never been on it before, so we can just get on there and do our thing. And this
which is a funny
explains, this is where she explains how the enchantment works. She needs to make physical contact, and then she says, like we see with the guard, she could just touch them and they do what she wants. Or if they're a stronger willed person, she's in control, but they're there as well, so she has to do something to keep them occupied. And that's when she was like, for C20 I had to like pick a memory she had from hundreds of years ago. It's like weird, because it looked like a pretty I guess they're outside of time, so C20 could have been from like the year 3000 or something, but it looked very contemporary. So I was like, what? But again, they're outside of time, so there's no that doesn't mean anything. But she said she had to pick something from like hundreds of years ago, that she would remember to keep her occupied. And it was before she worked for TVA. And he's like, what? No, they said that the timekeepers created them for the TVA. And she's like, no, they're just variants like us that work for the TVA. He's like, but they don't know that. So that is the big bombshell of the episode.
Yes. And there was a lot of people suspecting that as theory. I certainly wasn't one of the people that did. That caught me majorly off guard. And now the theories amongst my head are running wild.
Well, I hate to do this to you, but
I'm
I
not
think we're
doing
gonna
it.
come back to it. We're coming back.
I'm not doing that yet. I'm just saying.
We have one more chunk of episode to talk about, and then we can unpack all of that bombshell.
Oh, of course. Yes.
Basically, they rush to the Ark.
Yep.
They do have to fight some people, and then there's a moment where Loki reverses a building falling on them.
Yes.
Now, and then the Ark blows up, so they can't get off. They don't know if they can get off. That's the end of the episode.
Right.
So working backwards, I know people think that he is using a time stone to reverse it, but it seems like we've seen him manipulate things throughout this show.
So
like he's grabbed things and brought things towards him. I feel like it means he could push things away.
The telekinesis question, the power is the ultimate question. And I think some content creators have pointed out that he, in his flip out moments in like previous Thor movies, you can see him actually like moving things without touching them. So it's like, oh, he's probably always had telekinesis. It's just never been displayed to this level. And I'm like, that makes more sense, because I can't imagine him having the time stone and not using it more throughout the episode.
Or where would he use it?
Like exactly where, like, I can't imagine him not using it. But the other point is, we already know how the time stone works. Like, it has that ring circlet thing around the wrist, and it just like rotates. Like, we've seen Doctor Strange use it, and we've seen Thanos use it. And Thanos using it had the exact same thing and didn't train with Strange to do the hand signal thing. So it's just like, it works one way. So I can't, it's not the time stone to me. It can't.
Well, I'm not saying it's definitely not. I'm just saying it's,
some people do. Yeah.
Yeah. Because what you're talking about, I don't know where he would use it otherwise. It's not a space stone. It's not going to move him different places. He still needs to get where he needs to go, where he's going.
But what it could be,
I mean, he could, we don't know what he's going to do. He could use it to unexplode the Ark later.
Right.
Like,
but what I was actually thinking, if he did have the time stone, it would explain that jump where Sylvie was sleeping, because it would explain him going forward, trying different ways to manipulate her, and then not being able to be successful, and then going back, and then the only explanation would be like, oh, she fell asleep and woke up or something like that. And that would make a lot of sense to me if he was using the time stone. But in that situation, there's clearly no time, because you see his hands, he's like telekinesis pushing it back up. It wasn't a reversal, was it? Like, did you see things coming back into the building, like cement structure?
It's like this, and then it went like that.
The building just moved back up.
Yeah.
It like, because to me, I was looking for visual cues of like cement blocks like fracturing off and combining back into one and then going up. But to me, all I saw was like, I thought it was like a water tower or something like that. So it was like, oh, I'm going to push this one whole thing back up to where it's supposed to be to prevent us from dying. And I'm like, I didn't think anything more of that. But it's kind of interesting that people think it's a time stone without the visual cue around the wrists.
Yeah. Well, I guess, Thanos had the thing around his wrist as well. So we'll see. I just think, I'm not saying it's definitely not that. I just think another explanation is just he's used his telekinesis in this show for sure. And there's moments in the movies where he probably has. I just don't know how to cite them. And then the next thing is the concept that Sylvie has him in a mind thing the whole time.
Yes.
I think people say it's when she tries it the first time and he goes, no, my mind's too strong. But I'm like, it feels like she would have to have started earlier. Like, she would have probably had to have started in the TVA. I feel like it, like when she had him in the headlock, basically. If this is what's happening, if this is all like Sylvie getting information from Loki, because I think we both feel she did want him there. Like, she wouldn't have left the door open for that long.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just, to me, the idea when people are like, oh, that's just how the time portals work, and I'm like, well, then why did it close immediately after Loki walked in? I'm like, it can't be that. It can't be time gated. If it was time gated, then there's a safety feature that has to be built in the sense where it's like, hey, a garage door will come down and the motion activator will come up. I can't imagine the TVA would be like, okay, someone crossed through and then it's going to close immediately without a switch on the other side, or the ability to control the door opening or closing, right? It's got to be like, someone walked in, we should probably keep this door open for another 30 seconds in case we chop someone's arm off, a TVA agent. But that's just the way I saw it. I'm like, okay, did she invite him in? Did she not care? Was it a mistake? It felt like it was an invitation to me, because I'm like, you planned out all this kind of things for 10 years and you left this loophole.
Was it 10 years? I don't know.
Or like years or whatever, like however long it took for her to plan off all the charges and the time things for all of across the timeline and all that kind of stuff. It took her a while.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know what they're going to do. As we pointed out, we just crossed the halfway mark, so it's not like there's a lot of room for them to do other things. But it feels like she's always been ahead of Loki, and a lot of the times he thinks he's tricking her or thinks he's found her out. She's very like nonplussed and like, yeah, I mean, obviously. Or yeah, you don't need to go down this. I already know what you're doing. So I feel like that's it, but there's also evidence to me that Loki's more in control. Like, did it really run out of power like that? Like, that's very convenient that he can like make it run out of power so that she can't kill him immediately, or they can't leave, or the fact that when he gets thrown out, which is something he most likely would have known would have happened, that he causes a scene like that,
right,
and it would cause a fight, and then just all of a sudden it's broken. I'm like, and I get it, like that was, you got thrown from a moving train. It's different than getting shot and landing on your ass.
Yep.
But I'm just like, I feel like you would know something like that would happen. So it does seem like he's also got a plan going as well.
Yeah, to me, it's very interesting because I can't tell if they're mirroring each other in different ways. Like, she lets him run his mouth and gets himself frustrated and all that kind of stuff and plays his own mind. That's what she's doing to waste his time. But to me, I'm like, is he wasting her time by looking incompetent? Because we know Loki is not that incompetent, but he's making himself to look that way. Like the idea of
he's not that competent.
You're right, he's not, but he's not incompetent.
He is a loser.
Right.
Like,
but he's not that incompetent.
I'm just saying he's never really been in control like that.
I agree with that. He's always been.
He's like, able to like trick his brother into touching a snake and getting bit or whatever. And it's not like
I love that a lot.
Like, a lot of stuff is like he still needed to work with Thanos to even get to where he was in the Avengers, and that blows up in his face. And then like I don't know how competent he is. I still think it's an act. It's just I wouldn't give him the credit of like, he's like, we've never seen him win when he's going up against someone who isn't emotionally invested in wanting him to be good. Like, Thor is emotionally invested in wanting to be his brother and wanting them to be on the same side. But you've never seen him outwit realistically anyone who wasn't in that way. Like, he might be able to do an illusion and trick somebody, but like, I don't know that he's I don't know if he's not a real threat as he builds himself up to be.
He's definitely not as confident.
This show has doubled down on that, but we've already seen that throughout the movies.
Yeah, he is definitely not as competent, but it's just, that's what makes me wonder. I'm like, is he trying to use that as a way to stall her? Like, because there's a lot of stuff that is
trying to waste her time. Yeah. Because when she says, "Oh, you only kept me alive because then I can use the temp pad and get us out of here," and he says that too, like that. Like, there's obviously something else he's doing. He says that too, and then goes, "Oh yeah, that," which seemed performative as well. Like, he's like, "Yeah, you believe that," and I think, I just think both of them have got something going on.
Yeah, they're both sliming each other for sure, and it's really fun to watch. But it's like, it makes me second guess everything, which is frustrating, because it's like, you're right, like having a show where it's like, if you're questioning every single aspect, it's not fun. at all.
It's not that it's not fun. It's just how do you end that properly then? Like nothing will seem like it's earned if you didn't buy in on anything.
Yeah, that's fair. Do you want to speculate about the big bombshell and what that means, and for the series? Yeah, the variants being, I mean, like it makes a lot of sense. Like to me, I think back to the first episode, I'm like, was that guy or was Loki being processed to be an agent, and have his mind wiped? Had he gone through the whole Mobius, like the Renslayer thing? Like, was Renslayer the person that made that decision of like, you go through the process and your mind's actually wiped and you become a TVA agent and you become on the level of like Mobius or something like that? So was like Mobius like a bad guy that got his mind wiped and is now, will he be finding out his memories like Renslayer, like C14, is it
20?
C20? Will they be finding out their own memories and being like, holy shit, we were lied to by the TVA, like rebellion, what's going, because we know this is going towards splitting the multiverse and all that kind of stuff. We've seen Kang in like that whole Miss Minutes kind of video, the propaganda video. He was one of the time people, right?
No.
Well, I mean, one of the faces looked very much like Kang, so we don't know if that
one
was
of them looks like Kang. It's not Kang, though.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I jumped. I made the jump there, but it's just one of those things of like, I feel like at this point, like, is the whole TVA gonna implode when they're like, hey, our memories put us back and all this kind of stuff? I don't know. It's just wildly interesting where this is gonna go now.
I do think that, I do think part of Sylvie's plan is to just bring back the multiverse, whatever that was. Like, we don't know what that actually was, but she wants to destroy the sacred timeline. I believe that is ultimately her goal.
Yes.
To what end, I don't know, but I just know that, I think you're right that that's where this is leading to. But I don't know what it means for them to be people that were, or that are variants. I don't, I think that's just, for me, it's just a practical way of being like, this is how you can enslave a bunch of people and no one notices because they're variants. So like, it's all coming from timelines that get erased after they're gone, and the person that should have kept going just keeps going, and you don't, so there's no like missing person thing like WandaVision. It's not like, oh, there's all these missing people. It's like these people shouldn't have existed according to timekeepers. These people shouldn't have existed, so it's okay to take them and make them work for us. That's all I took it as. I don't really know, like, again, the show's called Loki, so if you're gonna make it about these people who now get their memories back and what that impact is, I don't know how that really helps.
I don't think it's going to be a big impact. I just think it's going to be like the TVA agents being like, screw the time authority people. We're not going to do this job. We're rebelling, and like adding to the chaos of the final scene or something like that. I'm not saying like, we're going to see Renslayer become a fully developed character beyond this show. I don't know. I think that would.
I mean, I don't know if she's a variant, or if she is, I don't think she's a variant that doesn't know she's a variant.
Right.
She seems a bit too, and I've seen other content creators say the same thing.
Right.
She knows where the bodies are, so to speak. So she has to have bought it. Even if she is a variant, I think she knows it, and she's just like, okay, and I'm willing to play ball.
Because she must have known what the like alternative is. Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know why she would be down, but it seems like she's down, and it would be weird if they were able to trust someone with that, because then I would imagine she needs to know that all these other people are variants as well that she's controlling. So it would be weird if she was like, but I'm the only one that's not. They can write it that way. I don't know if that's good writing, if they go like, oh, she thinks she's the only one that's not a variant.
Right. That would be some very, very interesting writing of like, how is she actually the only one that's not a variant, and then the time authority, like that's a lot of trust in one person. But we have only seen,
she just is like, oh, okay, and I'll do whatever.
We also don't know what her title is. Like, is she like Grand Maester of the TVA, like the CEO position where there's only supposed to be one, and that would make sense if the agents were like, oh, we'll trust one.
They said her title in the first one. She's
did they
whatever judge, and she is the person that hears from the timekeepers, and then she rules. She passes out their ruling.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, that it's the shortest episode. So it's no surprise that we didn't have a lot to say, because a lot of it is fighting and running. But I think we touched on the important things, and I think it was very interesting to see how and I think they were even trying to do like take another swing at the whole Vision saying what is like
what is love, like the dagger thing, that Shakespearean kind of analogy of what it is.
Yeah, because they did it in WandaVision. It seems like they were trying to do it here, and I liked when she's like, so love is a fake dagger. He's like, oh, it's nothing, is it? She's like, no, it's a terrible metaphor.
Yeah, I like how it immediately doesn't work. It doesn't have the same impact of white Vision or anti-Vision or new Vision or whatever we want to call them with old Vision. That whole like ship discussion.
No, I'm talking about when just the made up Vision, the one that Wanda created, was talking about what is grief if not love persevering or something like that.
Oh, you mean like they're trying to have that level of like?
Yes, it seemed like they were going for that, but then you get to the end of the episode, you're like, oh no, they weren't. They were just having fun with that concept.
Yeah, I'm glad that they were trying to do that, but it didn't work out, because I'm like, I don't think that would work in this show or this character, because like Vision's the only character that could like legitimately in the middle of a fight or whatever do like ask a philosophical question and like, this is interesting. Yeah, I like the pacing of this versus like this asking a philosophical, like trying to do that philosophy within this show. I don't think it's going to work quite so well with Loki as a character.
I disagree. I think all of these characters. Yeah, I don't know why you would think that. Like, all of these characters are open to having the same thoughts and feelings. So like,
no, they're open to having the same thoughts and feelings. I agree, but I'm just saying it works better with Vision having those very philosophical moments. If that's what you were trying to say, like they were going for a philosophical moment of that.
I don't know if you've heard what I've said, but right. I basically just saying that like they were having fun with that moment, but that doesn't mean that this show isn't geared towards like.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Like seeing them talk, they are like talking about the meaning of life. They don't have to get into grief, because that WandaVision was about grief, but this show is very much about things you love. People like to joke about that Mobius loves jet skis, but we are talking about Loki loving his mother. We are talking about Sylvie having her postman, but like looking for something else to love. So I do think that this show is.
You think this show is about finding love and finding purpose?
I don't know if the show is about that. I think it is exploring different versions of love, and I hope that's why I'm saying I'm hoping they do more than just lip service of when Loki was like, yeah, princes and princesses, but like if you think about what is most impactful to Loki in that first episode that we really liked, it's seeing that he got the love of his father and his brother. He knew he had the love of his mom, but that is what's important to him, right? And he even says, love is something that I'm gonna have to be more drunk to get into. Like that is something that eludes Loki, he feels. And I think when we talked about that first episode, that he says he wants power, but we also know that he needs the love. Like that is what he needs, but regardless of what he wants. So so that's why I'm saying this show, all of these shows have been geared to something way more universal than, oh, isn't it cool that they have powers?
Right. No, I totally get that. You know what, that's one interesting thing is I never really truly wondered what this show, or truly asked what this show was trying to explore with the Black Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Captain Falcon. What fucking king? God damn it! Names are so hard.
All good. They call him Black Falcon in the show. I just thought it was funny that it worked on you too.
Yeah, no, it's just one of those things where I'm like, I'm remembering different parts and pieces of shows. Sorry, my sleep has been terrible lately.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
No, that's why. It's like, oh, I didn't sleep well last night. Sorry, Falcon and Winter Soldier, when they're like, that show's exploring about being black and white spaces, and WandaVision's about exploring like trauma and how people cope and all that kind of stuff, with loss and all that. What this show is becoming a little bit like, what I'm seeing a little bit more of is how is love, what is love and all that kind of stuff, because he's exploring love throughout all the antics that he's doing. Like through the first one is like, oh, my love of power is being like challenged or whatever. He's finding out about like the gratification of the family love he has, and like, so like what does he love and all this kind of stuff. It's interesting.
I think it's love, and the more I think about it, like he more overtly is bumping up against the lack of free will that he sees. But even if you were to keep within the sacred timeline and you feel like you don't have that, the people you love and those connections is where you could feel like you've got that control, and that power. Like those relationships still can form. So I do think, the fact that this episode made jokes about it, I still think that it is a big theme that does connect into overall control.
Because Loki's a person that uses power to get love, or his version of love, and I think now he's trying to question about like, or at least Sylvie's putting the questions in his mind about like love and all this kind of stuff, past lovers, and whether or not they were complete and whether or not they were fully there, what they're looking for. I think it's very, very interesting. I think this series is more about love than anything else, and that's wild to me, for a time travel show about mischief gods. It's really, really cool.
I think that I just wanted to point that out, that I don't think these shows are framed properly when people are reviewing them. I get it. Some people are just like, was it fun? Was it action packed or whatever? But for me, I'm always interested in what is the overall thing that the people that spent a year or whatever of their life making this, what is it they want to get across? And I think that we've already seen that, like the through line here each time, like even in the second episode, the emotional beat for him is seeing that like the Asgardians, are wiped out.
Completely decimated.
It isn't. And so that's not a thing of like, oh, now I can't control them. It's just like those are my people. That's like, yes, I was born a frost giant, but I grew up Asgardian. That is upsetting to me. That's people he loved are gone. So I feel like through these 3 episodes, we've dealt with the different forms of love. And so that's why I thought it was funny when they brought up like love is hate. And then he jokes and brings up the quill and the paper. He's like, what was that again? What did you say? She's like, fuck off or whatever. But like it is trying to get at the nature of love. And you might like, there might be a part of him that feels like love weakens you, right? Like you can't be as controlling if you genuinely care about someone and you have love for them.
There's definitely that angle of like the vulnerability of love and like how much someone needs to fully submit to the idea of love to genuinely be in love. And like this episode to me is really, really great. Like that exploration of like princes and princesses but never truly there was the idea to me of like, neither one of them ever wanted to submit. And that's throughout the whole episode of like, even like the Loki thing being like, no, I'm going to do my thing, all this kind of stuff. I'm going to do it my way. And when they started working together, they got through, they were successful in their mini mission, so to speak. So the idea of like, they're being challenged, they're challenging each other because they know. And the interesting thing is they are supposed to be each other in the sense where they're both Loki, and they're critically thinking about love through each other. And I think that's so wildly fun. The one thing I wanted to say is like there's a like online like rumor that the Postman is like Stan Lee's cameos, because Stan Lee has had multiple cameos where he's been a delivery man, and like when he's talking about the Celestials, like that scene in Guardians, I think, when he's talking about to the Celestials about like, oh, this one time on Earth and I was delivered this and all this kind of stuff. It's like it's like a theory right now that Stan Lee is the Postman, and I'm like, that's kind of nice for him to have a cameo without, his spirit having a cameo, if that is truly what the writers intended to do. It's kind of nice.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe we're just projecting, because I often do that.
Yeah, it could be. But yeah, it could be that it's someone who also doesn't really live within time and lives outside of it. But yeah, I think that's kind of just the episode, is them. I guess we didn't say it out loud, but it is them seeing if they can trust each other, or at least Loki keeps bringing it up. He asks somewhat near the beginning of, "Do you trust me?" And then I think before they make their run for the arc, it's like, "Do we trust each other?"
And by the way, what a great scene! I mean, like continuous one shot style scene where they're running through that place, and that was a lot of fun.
It's a fun show. I think that maybe people just don't care to unpack this stuff. I do think it's doing deeper things than people are, like every one of these shows so far.
Yeah, I do agree. I feel like I am speaking to people in my personal life that are like, they know, obviously we have the podcast, and they're like, oh, and I'm like, oh, what did you think? And they're clearly like not really looking at it from the perspective of how we're looking at, like, oh, this show is about this. It's about like, and the best example is Falcon and Winter Soldier, where it's like, this show is like, oh, they were like, I like Loki better because it's going places, let's say end of the world stuff already. I'm like, but the story that's being told is fundamentally better in Falcon Winter Soldier. They're like, yeah, but it didn't have enough stuff, world building. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, these characters are established. It's very wildly interesting how people are seeing these shows, because they're now, I feel, expecting like Endgame, Infinity War level stuff out of Marvel, where I'm like, no, this is purposefully bringing it down. And I'm like wondering, okay, is the point of these shows, and it very clearly to me is, to show off that human side of story versus, and we'll see this with Black Widow whenever we get to see that safely, obviously.
Oh, it's on Disney Plus.
Right, like, what I mean is I want to watch it in theaters as well. I want that experience. So anyways, so we will watch it and we will review it, obviously. But the idea of like, will Black Widow's movie be the big blockbuster events that people are more accustomed to, and they just have to kind of get the understanding that these shows are about human, very real stories, and the movies now are telling the blockbuster stuff, event stuff, at least. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see.
I don't know, because I think ultimately every one of these, I'm not saying they do it well, but every one of these MCU movies has been about a personal, or like a human story.
Yeah.
It's just they need people to pay to go see it, so there's a lot of action surrounding them. But I can't, off the top of my head, other than for me, Ant-Man and the Wasp it didn't really go anywhere for me, but I still understood what parts of it were the human story they wanted to tell. I just think, Kevin Feige very smartly is like, now that we've got TV shows, we can be a lot more intimate with it. And that is the function of TV anyway. That's what everyone has always, not everyone, that's what people have always subconsciously acknowledged, is that this is you inviting someone into your home as opposed to going out to see them. So it always feels a bit more invested and closer, that this is your friends you're inviting over, and they're in your home with you while you watch them. It feels like, and obviously these shows they've got more time to tell the story with these characters. You're digging deeper with them, which I always appreciate. But I think all of the MCU movies have always been about personal stuff and universal truths that and I'm not saying they're all done perfect or done well, but it's in there. It's always in there. And now we've just got the 6 hours or 8 hours to unpack it more with these TV shows.
Yeah, because Black Widow upcoming obviously is clearly based on the trailers, and we'll see what the execution's like, but clearly all about family, reestablishing, reconnecting, all that kind of stuff. It's about that. It's a very human story at the end of the day, while being a spy espionage story. We will see that. Every single one of these properties is about telling those human stories. And you're right, some more successful than others, but this is a show where I think by next episode, we'll be able to conclude like, yeah, this show is about finding love and what that actually looks like when love has less confines and the traditional views of what it's supposed to be.
Well, we'll see. I hope you're right about that.
And I do hope that he does, you're right, like get some connection with something that's more than just lip service through the like dialogue of the reveal that he's bi or pan.
And I'm saying that as in like, if we are committing to bringing back this Loki so that there's more times we can see Loki, I'm saying that like the same way I wasn't expecting Falcon and Winter Soldier to be the final word on those characters and like that's it, we're closing the books. I'm like, let's see them take these, and then we find out, oh, there is a Captain America 4 starring Anthony Mackie. It's like, okay, like let's see what that means now that we've done that groundwork on exposing his imposter syndrome and how he felt as a Black person. Like, let's see how that translates going forward. That's what I mean by I hope they continue that. Like, I hope that's not just a line that was in this show, and then if you see him again, it doesn't factor into anything.
Yeah, I agree with that. I want these very, very much like throwback moments that the creators of these shows are very, very good at doing. Like the throwback moment of Thor 1, I like it, another throwing it on the ground, or even the throwback moment of how Loki was thrown off the train, and like the visual shot of him shaking off the landing the exact same way he's shaken off every single landing that he's ever had. Like I think down to when he was falling for 30 minutes, he landed, he shook off the exact same way. I'm like, those are great little attention details. But and this is me, I guess, speaking to the show runners or whatever, if they're listening, please don't let that bisexual thing just be like, oh, okay, or pan, just to be a talking point and line of dialogue. Like, hopefully there's some visual element of him having love with, a man or a woman or whatever. But we like show it, don't just say it.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, but happy Pride, that was great, cool. I guess we'll see, hopefully, like you said, the footsteps of something bigger. But, but for a lot of people that was a good moment, so I'm glad that everyone got that.
Happy that, because I know the concern has always been there's never been a main MCU character who identifies as anything but straight. So this is the first time that there's been confirmation. So that's good.
We'll see with Captain Marvel. Eternals is coming up. That is 100% confirmed, and we'll see if Captain Marvel 2 is gonna go that way. If there's a gay relationship there too, because there's speculation there, but we'll see.
Well, I hope not in that movie. I hope it's just talked about that it happened in the past, because I think what you're talking about is the Rambo.
Yeah, the Monica Rambeau, and maybe if there was a potential romantic relationship there, or whether or not it was just
the
like
person who was in WandaVision, her mother.
Not the daughter.
Very that would be predatory if they were like, and now we can have a relationship.
That is very predatory, and that is not okay. I'm like, no, that should not be a thing, because like think about the context in which that happened or would have happened. Not cool at all.
But that was lovely.
Episode 3.
It's we did it. It's in the books. We'll be back next week, and I don't remember what I say now. Basically, we're part of the That Shelf podcast network, so please head on over there. You'll see great podcasts like Bad Gay Movies, Black Hole Films, Changing Reels, Composers. There's a whole bunch of stuff, so go there. You'll love it. We have our back catalog on tdfeverything.com/spoiledrotten. So if you want to see older episodes, you can go there. And if you want to tweet at us, we are at tdfspoiled. If you want to email us, we are spoiledpodcast@gmail.com. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Radio Public, a whole bunch of different places. So please go there, rate, review, subscribe, and share with your friends, your family, anybody that you know. Just tell them about us and get them to do the same thing.
Yes.
All right.
Tell everyone, like an MLM plan.
Well, I don't want to be associated with that.
I'm joking.
Just tell everyone so they can all have a good time.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. All right. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.